Let's be humble here. If I'm not perfect, Raid's not perfect. Hello, everyone. Bront, CatHerder here. We're having some fun talking Raid Shadow Legends, and I am humbly here before you guys to tell you a little bit of things that I think that Raid could certainly continue to fix. Raid has done a lot of quality of life, and I still find it interesting to hold their feet to the fire for some of the things that I think they could make better than they currently are. Now, Polarium, to their credit, has actually done a really good job of pushing a lot of changes to the game and a lot of quality of life improvements, and I think that that is absolutely amazing. So I want to give them some credit where credit is due. They have continued to push quality of life stuff, particularly over the past 6 months to a year as the game has gotten older, but also as the move to being owned by MTG, I think, has made them realize they need to improve the quality of life if they want to continue to be competitive for a game that is going on 6 years old. With that said, let's talk about a couple of the things that I think that Raid really could do better than they are currently doing. So the first ones here are going to have to do with shards. And before you say the shards rates are terrible, Polarium is not going to touch the shard rates. We can complain about the shard rates all they want. They're not going anywhere. The way that they would be best served changing the shards would be to make the shards a little bit easier to get. And to some level they have. Clan Boss is easier to do than ever because of the way the power creep has worked in the game. And they do regularly put shards in events and tournaments and as rewards for things. And there are more things going on that can give you more shards. So it has been easier to get shards than it has honestly ever been in Raid Shadow Legends. Does that mean that we still wouldn't mind more? Sure. But honestly, I also think that in some cases, maybe having more of them is part of what makes Raid Raid. Well, not actually having every champion, not getting everything you want. There's a balancing factor, and you could certainly argue which side of that balancing factor of always wanting more versus being able to get the stuff you need that Raid fills. But they do well enough to retain a lot of players. So from that end, it's good. One of the things I think that they really need to do is it's about time we actually finally got the Mercy system showing up on these shards. Now, I unfortunately don't have any of the things available to show you. I can certainly go into the Remnant summons here and we can take a look at this. Remnant summons here behind me, and let me move me so you can actually see what I'm talking about. Now, we have the odds right here. You have something very similar that shows up in the column right where I would be right now in the summoning pool. And in the summoning pool, as you pull, you actually can see your rates increase once you hit Mercy, and that's great. Why don't we have tracker on these Remnant summons? It would be nice to know if this number changes, and to be fair, I don't know if I've actually pulled a full 24 of these things for this to actually change or not. That's actually kind of questionable. The fact that these take 24 times without reading a mythical before you get an additional 1% chance, honestly, Mercy for these, I totally understand not wanting to overwhelm mythicals for absolutely everybody. Mercy for these should be the first Remnant summon. First Remnant summon is 2.5% chance. After that, it goes up by 1% every time you pull them until you pull a mythical, and then would reset. That would make these shards so much better without flooding the game with these Remnants mythicals, because yes, there would be a much better chance of getting one, but what it would mean is it would probably take a year to get a mythical, would be a kind of expected life expectancy of this, as opposed to right now, it is years to get your first mythical with your Remnant summons, and that's assuming you are getting both of them per month, which honestly, I'm not. I'm doing about 1.5 per month, maybe 1 3/4 per month. I am not getting the full 2 per month, which means that I don't know if I've even pulled 24 yet on my account, and I have never gotten a mythical from my Remnants on this account. But for regular summon shards, why not? You've got the odds. You've got all the odds right up here. You can even update them when you've got the 2x. Why not actually post them somewhere? And why not update them when you hit Mercy? And honestly, it would be nice if we had an actual Mercy tracker, but even if we don't actually have the Mercy tracker, it would actually be nice to have the Mercy tracker show up on these summons so that we can at least see, am I in Mercy yet? Oh, good, I'm actually in Mercy, so I'm actually getting an improved rate on these particular shards. It would make people feel a little bit better about what they're pulling. It would honestly, I think, encourage people to spend more on shards, because I'll tell you right now, if I am looking for, say, a featured champion, say for example there is a Marichka or a Taurus available on Voids, and I don't know where my Mercy is, well, I'm probably not going to buy a Void pack to try to get them. On the other hand, if there's a rate up on one of those champions and I find out that I am at 195 into Mercy, well, suddenly buying 20 more Void shards seems like a really, really great deal. If I'm tracking it, to be fair, I track that with RSL Helper. It's a very useful tool, but it's not perfect because occasionally it is down when you pull shards, so you don't always see what you're going to be pulling. Even when it is not down, it is still not perfect, and why don't we have this in the game? Raid continues to make gear sorting a little bit easier. There's still a couple ones that would be very, very nice to figure out how to deal with. For example, I have no way to see whether or not some of this gear is rolled up or not. I can't actually sort it by rank. I can sort it by rank, I can sort it by rarity, I can sort it by priority stats, but I can't, for example, say, show me stuff that is level 0, so I can just see the unrolled gear, for example, or show me stuff that is plus 12, or stuff that is under plus 8. Which could be useful for some quests, for example. The other one that I think would be very helpful that we still haven't gotten yet, we now have the ability to select this as, does it have speed? Does it have 1 hit of speed, 2 hit of speed, 3 hit of speed, or 4 hits of speed? And to be fair, I don't know if this is 1 or more. In fact, let's go double check here. It is 1. It looks like it is just 1. So if I go to take this to 2, yep, now my 2s will show up here. So this is exactly 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. It's fine, but honestly, I think this would be better if this was either, does it have speed substat, and then what is the number of the speed as opposed to how many upgrades we have minimum. And then to be able to set a minimum for that would be good. The other thing that is missing is this none doesn't say, show me only ones that don't have speed. It means don't filter with the speed subset. I want a filter that lets me say, show me stuff without speed, or show me stuff without crit rate, or show me stuff without crit damage, etc., etc. There are reasons sometimes to look for pieces of gear that don't have a specific substat on them, and I shouldn't have to put 4 other substats on to look for them when maybe I don't care if it's got attack percent, but I definitely don't want it to have crit rate for some reason. That can totally happen in a build. It would be really nice to be able to have that feature in these filters. Raid, you're doing a great job improving these things, so I'm not going to take you to task for this one, but this is one I've actually been calling for almost a year. It needs to happen. Here in the Bazaar, and of course I'm actually in the Market tab, but the Bazaar is actually one of the markets I want to talk about specifically. I don't think the Bazaar is horrible in and of itself. It's a decent spot. In fact, I'm going to buy myself some brews and some substat charms here. I did a video talking about this as well if you're curious about what things are worth buying and what things are not worth buying in here. I think that they can probably get rid of this stupid breakdown of gold, silver, and bronze. Probably then get rid of this 4 to 6 star accessory right here and just leave this 5 or 6 star accessory here, because there's no reason to go for the 4 to 6 star one if you can get the 5 or 6 guaranteed, because this is basically about a third of the time going to waste your gold bars. Not worth it. Why is this split up? I kind of get the idea of why, but since you're also already giving away bars at a rate depending upon where you are in arena, you don't need to also have these things split up this way. If somebody wants to save up 5 months to be able to buy this sacred shard while in bronze, let them, or let them buy this legendary skill tome. It's going to take them longer. There's really unlikely to be able to farm enough medals in silver to be able to buy both of these on the monthly basis. So it's not like you can buy these things more than once a month anyway. And those are the 2 things you're probably mostly gatekeeping. But honestly, they also should make this void shard and this epic book a little bit cheaper. These chickens are stupid expensive. The fact that this rank 3 chicken here is that expensive when this ancient shard is not that much more. This chicken is way overpriced. He should be less than half of that. This 5-star chicken is overcooked as well. Should be definitely less than half of that as well. Honestly, even lower than that. But, you know, make the shop something that people can use, and it's one of the ways you can actually make 3v3 just a little more tolerable, because right now a lot of the people don't like it because the bronze shop kind of sucks once you get Direct Star. Yeah, you get the energy and you get the Ancient Shard, but you don't need to do much to be able to buy these things regularly. If I could suddenly maybe buy a Void Shard as a free-to-play player in Bronze, if I could save up enough for them, well, maybe in Bronze 3 or Bronze 4, it makes sense for me to constantly be farming it, playing it a little bit more. It makes the mode more interesting. It makes the mode more competitive. It gets people playing the game more. And all you have to do is just ease a few restrictions and kind of revamp the shop a little bit. Ah, yes, the daily login rewards. That's actually not why I'm here. For the most part, I think the daily login rewards are okay. They still did remove, for those of you that are not aware of it, at one point in time, there was a Sacred Shard here, and they removed the Sacred Shard for fragments for legendary and epic champions for a while. And most of those champions are okay to not great. In some cases, absolutely terrible. And a lot of it is not that the champions are bad in of themselves. It's when you get them, they're just not that great. But that's a problem with a lot of these champions now. Some of these champions are great. High Katoon is really, really good. I think that she's a good day 30 login champion because if you haven't gotten a speed booster by the time you get here, she is a great speed booster and she is worth using and building on any account because she is useful for a lot of limited resource content. She is really easy to build. She can be useful for arena for a long time to come. On the other hand, you've got epics like Yaga the Insatiable, Dark Aethel, Lordly Legionary, aka Lousy Legionary, even Dark Elhain to some extent. Dark Elhain's not bad. The other ones are absolutely terrible. And that speaks to where some of your epics are absolutely terrible and could use a buff. You recently came out and said you will not be buffing epics because you felt we were better off buffing legendaries than epics. I actually disagree with that sentiment. Now, I understand a lot of the endgame players want legendaries buffed, but you have to remember that they are not the only people playing your game. There are plenty of free-to-play and casual players that don't have a ton of legendaries that are using epics as the backbone of their account. Epics are more accessible, so an epic that gets buffed into useful relevance becomes more impactful to more players of the game, even if it is not impacting some of the endgame players. And to be fair, it's not impacting the whales as much, and that is probably part of why they've made that choice. But I really don't understand why it is so hard for you to balance more than 2 champions a month, and they can only be 2 legendaries. If you were at least 2 legendaries and 1 epic, then it would be a little bit better. And then people would say, hey, there's some epics that are being buffed. That would be helpful. But really, some of these accessible free-to-play champions need severe buffs. Yaga is an absolute trap. I tell people to not make chickens out of champions, especially epics, definitely early on. Yaga is one of the few exceptions where if you used Yaga as a chicken, I would not blink twice at it because Yaga is literally one of the worst epics in the game. You know, not quite that bad, but he's darn close. He is a huge trap. He doesn't do what he's supposed to do well, which is poison, and you could make him so much better, and all it would take is to make some of his skills to be 100% and maybe fix his cooldowns a little bit. He doesn't have to be amazing, but it would be nice if he was actually a usable single target poisoner if somebody chose to invest in a Yaga the Insatiable. Same with Dark Aethel. She's supposed to be kind of a spider nuker, but by the time you get her, you're usually already past where she is a useful champion, and her damage doesn't scale well enough to do it anyway. So maybe make that damage scale up a little bit because she's already got a mechanic to scale up the more champions she's attacking. So maybe ramp that up a little bit. You know, Lordly Legionary is supposed to be a Fire Knight champion because he's got some triple hits, but his skill kit is just really bad. Maybe, honestly, I'd probably just delete Lordly Legionary. I don't think he has a place in the game at the moment, and that's how bad he is. He is probably worse than Yaga because he has no redeemable qualities other than a triple hitter, which is not that great. Maybe Lordly Legionary could get a complete kit rework, get some buffs. Champions like that need help. Rosin needs help. The Doom Tower champions need help. The free-to-play accessible champions are champions that people should look forward to getting to, or at the very least understand that they have outspent their way towards looking forward to them. You know, we look here, Tanix Hateflower, again, another champion that not very good. I know Ash is fond of her because he helped her in Faction Wars, but nowadays, I'd never recommend anyone invest in a Tanix. She's just not that good. Grush? Okay, Grush actually brings some interesting things, so I'm not going to say too much bad stuff about Grush. Grush is actually pretty solid. He does some okay damage. He gets some okay other stuff as well. But even then, he's still not great. But he at least is the good level of, this is not an absolute trash champion that is being hoisted upon me. This is a champion that could be usable in some situations and might be worth building on an account that might get him at day 240. And that's the type of thing we're looking for. We're looking for these champions that we're going to get for free to be usable in some form. You know, Gerda, for example, is a champion that I think gets more hate than she needs because she is a usable champion. She's just not very usable where a lot of people get her. So maybe make her slightly better. I don't know. A slight buff for her might be helpful. Rosin you'd use a buff. Eric's. Okay, Eric's is actually pretty solid. So you got a couple of these folks right. A lot of the Doom Tower legendaries are absolute trash as well. And the fact that some of the Doom Tower legendaries are some of the worst legendaries in the game speaks to how bad these things are. And honestly, Polarium could do so much to correct a couple of these kits. It would just be so nice to have a few more rebalances and have some epic rebalances. I think it would help more players. It would help with player retention, and it would specifically help players in the early game because if they got an epic they could be excited about, they would be so much happier to keep playing. Whereas if they got an epic that is absolute trash, and if you keep getting trash epics, eventually it piles up and it can be very, very morale breaking for people that want to continue to play the game. Are you looking to join me and have fun playing Raid Shadow Legends? Well, I've got the link for you. Use my link down below and get yourself a free Elenarl once you get through the tutorial. Elenarl is a great legendary, does a bunch of poisons, does irresistible burns, explodes those poisons, going to be very, very great for progressing in the early game, great for your clan boss team, will really, really help you out. And then at level 15, get yourself an Ugo. Ugo is absolutely amazing. She is one of the best endgame epics. She brings your block debuffs, she brings your decreased defense, she's got a heal and a cleanse, she's got leech on that A1, she is super tanky, she's got a chance to revive. Absolutely amazing epic for you. All you need to do is start a brand new account using a brand new fresh email and use my link down below. Get started in Raid and have some fun. Team setups and AI. I would like these to be revamped just a little bit. Now, for the most part, these team setups are generally fine. I can do things such as, delay things by a turn I can mark something as open for this particular skill, for example. We have round 2 and round 3 options for wave content where you might have round 2 and round 3, so you can try to set up things for round 3 to be probable for you. That was a major, major fix that they made several years ago. You used to only be able to do round 1 or just the regular presets, so you had to hope that your skills lined up properly, or you had to turn off certain skills before you got to the end boss, or you sometimes had to speed tune it so fine that you had to make sure that you killed the waves in a very particular and regular order, because if you didn't, then your skills wouldn't line up properly against the boss. So I am glad those days are over. But that said, especially for some of these longer fights where it would be nice for us to be able to actually set some of these presets to have specific other subsets. For example, I'm running Lazarus, and I've got the Viper's Nest here. Lazarus can place block debuffs, and before he does it, he strips all buffs off of enemies, or decreases the duration for 2 turns, I should say. Maybe it would actually be nice to be able to set a marker on this one to only do this if there are buffs on the enemy. Or, for example, say I have a Reviver. It might actually be nice for the Reviver to be able to prioritize specific champions to be revived in a certain order, and maybe even turn off certain champions to revive in general. For example, if I'm on the Ice Golem, I sometimes might want to actually revive my Artek if he dies, if I'm running him with another reviver, but I don't necessarily want to revive my Seer, who's going to do more damage and cause more problems. So it might be nice to be able to flag, don't revive this champion on certain waves, to help the AI figure out who to revive sooner, or be a little more nuanced. Now, I understand that those are difficult things to let us manipulate properly. This is why I said the revive order might be an easy thing to do, because that might be simply another tab that would literally be revive order, and then you could simply set the revive order. Would be very nice. It would also allow us to prioritize things such as Lamasu's skill. If I could specifically say Lamaso uses the skill on this person all the time, it would be kind of nice. For the single target skills, for example, it would just be kind of nice to be able to say, I want to target this specific friendly champion for this skill. And that would be very, very helpful for these AIs. But one of the things I wish they would do with the AI as well is revisit your mythical AIs, because your mythical AIs are absolutely horrible. And case in point here, Lazarus, if I don't tell Lazarus to metamorph, he doesn't metamorph. He will continue to do his Phantom Cobra skill until the end of time. If he has everything else is on cooldown and he has the metamorph available, he will not metamorph into his other form, which means that I have to program him manually to be able to get him to change back and forth. Now, some people may say, well, that's a good thing. Well, the problem is that you're not consistent about it. So we have Toshiro here, on the other hand. I never want Toshiro to be in his second form unless I specifically want his second form to be available doing something. His second form is absolutely horrible in most circumstances. So I never want him to metamorph. But Toshiro will metamorph regularly. Nice. I don't want him to metamorph because generally I don't want Nice I don't want him to suddenly be in the other form where he could be nuked and killed when this form is going to keep him alive. He takes damage and he transforms into the other form. So what I want is I want him to not metamorph. And then if he is in this form, I want him to metamorph back, because then he gets this passive that can slowly but surely, once that gets off a cooldown, he'll be safe again. But it is not helpful if he transforms himself into the other form. And I don't believe he naturally transforms himself out of that form, which means that he's not going to put himself in a position to keep himself alive later on as well. I can't tell you how many of the mythicals, their AIs are so broken and busted because the mythicals you want to be hopping back and forth between forms don't actually hop back and forth between the forms like you might want them to. And the ones you want to be on a specific form never change. Garol? I don't want Garol on her first form ever because it's absolute trash. So it would be nice if she moved to her second form, but it would be nice at least if she moved to her second form after doing her first couple of skills. But no, she never changes. So she never gets to the form that actually is kind of useful, which is the nuker form. Why, Polarium? Fix your AI, fix mythical AI, and let us have a little more control over our AI. It would be so much better and give us so much more interesting team building and control. It would be so nice to be able to say, open with this skill, then do this skill, and then run the skills in the right order. It would be nice to have a secondary skill for what's the second one I want to have happen on any particular time. It would also be very nice, for example, on these mythicals, if in round 3, if I want you to transform here, and then I want you to lead off with this A1 first, because I don't want you to do something else. It'd be nice if it actually listened to that. It doesn't, because this is not the first skill of the turn. This is the first skill of that round. So as a result, this flag is ignored when he changes into the base form. It would be nice to be able to set the first thing to happen in the base form different from the other priorities. And in some cases, that is because ally attackers, for example, you may want to skip the ally attack on the first turn. Otherwise, you want that to always be the highest priority. But if they're changing from one form to another, that messes that up as well. So Polarium, you can do better with the team setup, and I think it would be an absolutely amazing thing for a lot of players. So there we go. Ways that I think Raid is not perfect, things that I think Polarium could improve. Some of them are pure quality of life improvements that I just would really want. Some of them are things that it is about time that we had because we haven't had them, and they're honestly in other games. It would be nice, and yeah, I realize some of them are probably pie in the sky wish lists. I understand that some of the AI improvements are probably not the easiest thing to do, although they have done some AI improvements on the general champion AI. For example, Newt is now smart enough to know to not do his Blessed Bash into the shield of the Fire Knight. Absolutely amazing change there, Polarium. A+ on that. But seriously, it would be nice if you would just, fix some of these things, make some of these things improved. And honestly, I know there's going to be plenty of other suggestions down in the comments below. So Polarium, if you're watching this video, check the comments down below. I have plenty of people often making great suggestions here. And if you're one of my people watching my video, one of these wonderful members of my community, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Let me know down below, what pain points do you have in Raid do you think that Polarium could fix? And I don't care if there's something you think are absolutely amazing that Polarium would never do, but you want it. I want to hear about it, because you know what? Sometimes some of the best ideas start by somebody saying, I don't think they'd ever do this, but maybe they should. And you know, we'll see. There's plenty of things that Raid I never thought they would do that they're already doing nowadays. Maybe we can get some cool stuff done in Raid Shadow Legends. So again, I appreciate you guys. You are absolutely amazing. One of the best communities in Raid, if not all of gaming. I really do mean that. So much love, so much, you know, positive feedback, positive discussions, very well thought out discussions, and even the stuff that's negative, you're not being rude or crude about it, and I appreciate that. You guys are absolutely amazing. Much love to you all. Have a wonderful day, and until the next video, I am Bront.